what do? I place that big element over there, really close to the camera. I place this element, which is almost going from the foreground to the middle ground, but it's again creating another layer of depth, another plane. Then what I want you to look at, which is the character over there, and he's being framed by the element of the back in the background, that arch of the building. So again, I broke the composition into foreground, this middle ground kind of area, and then this background area, which is flat. Like this is responding to a perspective. This is kind of responding to the same perspective because I'm placing these two objects really near to the reader. But this is basically just a flat wall, and this is just a flat character. But again, you sense that depth because of like this. Another thing that I use a lot is line weight because I break things that way. So you can see that my foreground element over there has an outline that is considerably thicker than anything else in this composition. I want to create that sense of depth also by using line weight. And you're going to see more example like this is an example in black and white. This is just things, so you see it better here. You have the big sister over here, and basically again I'm placing the reader right next to her, looking over her shoulder. You see this big frame of the door she's talking through, and then you get this middle ground element, which is basically the sofa, the kid. And again, the background element is almost flat. You don't need that much. You don't need to, wrap your head or be kind of. I feel like once you throw a perspective grid, that's usually when you're starting. That's what you do. You kind of become so obsessed to following every line, to following that grid to almost an extent that you kind of lose the organic aspect of what you're drawing and the organic aspect of the story that you want to tell. So what did I want to tell here? You have the big sister. She's the biggest element in the panel. She's in the foreground. You have the little brother. He's playing in the floor in front of the TV. There's a TV you see in the previous panel. And then I basically use my background element just to kind of depict the kind of house that they live in. You see that they collect stuff. You see that it's like kind of like a Victorian type of house. You see the lamp. The lamp is almost, because the lamp is also in this plane. It's not that much throwback to the background element. Then you see like the outline is a little bit thicker than anything in the background. And then basically hers just huge ass thick lines. So that places her right next to us. Another example is this one. And this one again, I placed the camera really low. My interest in this panel was to show the two characters leaving this behind. So what did I do? I take my smallest element because it's just a pendant, it's just a necklace, and I place it right in the foreground. Again, play thicker lines. The perspective here is almost just to give that sensation of the hole they're in, of the hallway they're in. That's about it. That's where I do my perspective grid and my projection, my lines and my vanishing points and all that. This I basically freehanded because it doesn't matter because, again, with this I'm not saying don't study perspective or don't pay attention to perspective. You need to know these things. You need to know about horizon line and where, like, how objects actually, and how many here know about like when you're drawing anything, when you have a horizon line, that the objects have to kind of, if you have a same size object, basically where that object meets the horizon line, no matter if you have any other, like that same object anywhere in the composition, far away, closest, it needs to hit the horizon line at the same spot. How many of you kind of know about that principle? Oh, good. That's a good number. Okay. Once I get into the demonstration, I will show you what I'm talking about right here. But basically, because the camera is really low, your horizon line is really low. And this is a drawer. It's a huge drawer because it's forward. But basically, so I'm thinking, okay, so this drawer is maybe this tall. The middle of the drawer is right about where the horizon line is, and it's hitting the guy kind of by the ankle. That's what I mean. Like if I place this guy really close to the composition, his ankle is still going to be at this level because the horizon line meets kind of every object in the same position, no matter where the object is. I will explain that later a little bit better. But again, that allowed me, just by knowing that tiny rule, I know how to freehand this, how to not necessarily be attached to the perspective grid that I have for the general composition. And basically because I also wanted to create that sensation of like, this is a bunch of stuff that has been like, this is a mess. So I don't want everything kind of like following the same vanishing point. And sometimes for people, like, it works. For me, it really doesn't. But sometimes people, yeah, they draw several vanishing points in their perspective grid, and then they kind of like, build it through that. But sometimes that's a step that you can take out once you become comfortable working with perspective and the composition of planes. So yeah, I got my big drawer over here, and then the main element surrounded by all this black placement. So I have the pendant really framed by everything, and then you have the characters just walking away, and that's the only perspective that I had to do. Again, foreground, middle ground, the background element is basically flat again. Let me go to the next.